Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be going over these two products that you see right in front of you right here. It's the Savage BA Stealth chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor, and then we also have the Weaver 6x30 tactical scope. I got these in literally, I think, 3 days apart, so they kind of have been paired together in my life anyway since I've got them. So I kind of want to go over both of them here in one video, kind of give you guys a 2-for-1, if you will. But this I should say 6.5 Creedmoor rifle was my first personally owned rifle chambered in this caliber. So I was doing a bunch of shooting with it over the past few months. I haven't taken it out as far as I need to, this particular one. This one's only gone out to, I believe, 440 yards out at my range. And then I actually went out to Las Vegas for SHOT Show, and Dimitri, a friend of mine out there, has the exact same rifle, and we shot that thing out to 800 yards. So I have stretched that one's legs out a little bit, and it's actually kind of rare. Typically when I do reviews here, I'm giving you a sample size of 1. In this case, I have a sample size of 2. What we're going to do next, though, is actually step outside, do the actual accuracy test on this rifle and this optic combination, see how it performs out there on paper, come back in, go over the details of both of them, and at the end we'll let you know what we think of it overall.
Tell you what, slinging them in there. The wind holds so much less for this. Plus it kind of died down a little.
That's easy peasy, huh?
It's hard to miss with this thing, man. Now we're going to see what kind of groups we can get with this rifle. We have a target down range at 100 yards. We have the CTK Precision Rest here. And then the ammo we're going to use is 140 grain American Eagle open tip match. And then we also have some Federal Fusion. This is 140 grain as well. However, it's more of a hunting, anti-personnel type load. On paper, shouldn't be as accurate, but we never really know until we actually shoot it. So on the scope, or on the rifle rather, we have a Weaver 6x30. This is our tactical scope with the mill dot. Very good glass. Overall, it's actually, I've been very impressed with it for sure. We have it sitting on some Seekins rings. And on the end of the rifle, we have the Liberty Mystic can. That one has their new sort of heavy-duty baffles. So we're going to go ahead and send the rounds down range. And first off, this is the American Eagle. That was weird. Guess it doesn't like that round. Not sure what's up with that. That's the first time that's ever happened, so you guys get to see it. Well, I'd say that was a pretty good group there. Now, next up with Federal Fusion. Now, I should point out these do take the Magpul AI pattern magazines, which is exactly what this is, so that's certainly a plus. Go check it out. Certainly both loads gave us real good accuracy. Now the first American Eagle there, I thought we were going to have a one-shot group, but nope. Last round killed it. So Center to center, we're right at 0.75 inches on that American Eagle group. And the exact same for the Federal Fusion. So both those loads are shooting well. I'd imagine with some hand loads, you guys who do that kind of stuff could tighten those up a little bit, but for 2 factory loads, I'll take that.
Getting into the details, we'll start here on the muzzle end and just sort of work back. You can see it does have a nice crown on there, very even all the way around, which is exactly what you'd expect from Savage and contributes to the accuracy that we just saw. We have a thread protector protecting 5/8 by 24-inch threads, so standard AR-10 pattern threads, or a lot of 308 bolt guns will also be threaded for the same thread pitch, so it's very easy to find suppressor mounts and hosts and adapters and all that stuff for it, because it's the most common pattern here in America. So of course, if you can't have a suppressor or don't have one for whatever reason, you can also run any sort of a flash hider or muzzle brake on there should you choose to do so. So we have a continuous taper style barrel. It's 24 inches in 6.5 Creedmoor, and if you go with the 308 version, it will be 20 inches. So just sort of a quick aside is that in the 6.5 Creedmoor, if you look at most commercial ammo data out there, you'll see that sort of the sweet spot for ammo performance is 22 to 24 inches. So this one, of course, meets that, and you'll get good results downrange with that. So we have the fluting here on the barrel. That obviously is going to lighten it up a little bit. It's going to help it cool faster, and it's also going to give it more rigidity compared to rifles of similar weight, but without the fluting, if that makes sense. So it's evenly done all the way around and should cool and heat evenly, which is exactly what you're looking for if you go with the fluted barrel. The chassis system that this rifle sits in is one-piece monolithic billet aluminum, so that alone is a very, very strong system. And one thing about it that's different than some of the competitive options out there is your forend here is relatively short. So the good news on that is it's going to help lighten the rifle up. This rifle comes in at 9.1 ounces with no optics or anything on there, at least on my scale it did anyway. So it does help it keep it light compared to other options in the class. But if I know some folks want to use the extra handguard length for barriers and stuff like that, just be aware that you don't have that option with this rifle and this chassis system. But for most folks, it's going to be just fine. It was just fine for me. We have a bipod attachment point here up front, and then all the slots that you see in there are M-LOK compatible. So really you can put anything on there that you want, lights, lasers, slings, etc., without issue. So plenty of options there with the modularity that comes with it. So moving on back here to the rest of the chassis system, you'll see some cool things going on. First and foremost, we have our magazine well, and I just kind of want to get one of the, I see it as, I don't want to say con, but just something to be aware of, is that this rifle ships with these MDT tactical magazines, and if you go to the Savage website, it'll say that this ships with a 10-round mag. Well, I loaded it up with 10 rounds to kind of show you something here that I've noticed throughout the testing. So if you load it with 10 rounds, which it is right now, and try to put it in there and try to insert it, you can see it starts to rub right about there. And if you actually see these rub marks here on the magazine, that's what that's from. And you can get it in there. It's extremely difficult. And it will go in, it will lock in, and it will function. But in my experience, this particular magazine works best with 8 or less rounds, because once you get it to 10, it starts to swell a little bit and rub on the mag well. Now, that's sort of the bad news. The good news is, again, it still works just fine. And also the good news is that any of the Magpul AI pattern mags, like we talked about earlier, work just fine in there, and you can load those up to max capacity without any sort of interference issues. And those are what I primarily use throughout this review anyway. But both AI pattern mags and the mag that comes with it, the MDT mag, work just fine. Just be aware of that rubbing issue. The trigger guard on the rifle is obviously built into the billet chassis, and it's very roomy. So if you're out there shooting in the winter with gloved hands or something like that, you shouldn't have any issue manipulating the trigger, because there's plenty of room in there. Now, speaking of the trigger, we'll run that and just make sure. It is Savage's Accu trigger. It is user adjustable. Mine right here broke pretty consistently at 2.4 to 2.5 pounds every time. Very crisp, very light. You take up sort of the safety that you have there. Once you take that up, almost no movement at all. Let me see if I can angle the gun to let you guys get a better look at it. And just kind of do it from underneath so you can see it. Look at that. Almost no movement, no over travel. Very, very nice trigger, as all the Accu triggers are. Now moving up here to the scope mount base. The base itself is an EGW base, I believe. It does not have 20 MOA built into it though. So some of you long range shooters out there know what I'm talking about. Some scope bases will have 20 MOA cant built into it, and what that does is it gives you a little bit more adjustment with the elevation when shooting at longer distances. Now we're going to get into scope here in just a second, but before any of that, just a general comment on that is in 6.5 Creedmoor with a rifle that's accurate like this one is, the ability to shoot beyond 800 yards is almost a given in my opinion. So I think if they ever make a Gen 2, it'd be nice to have a 20 MOA base to give you a little bit more adjustment range in the optic. Now in 308, maybe not, but in 6.5 it definitely can do it. Now with this optic, you don't need it, but that's a whole separate issue that we're going to get into here in just a second. The bolt operates very smoothly throughout the travel, so you can see here when you're actually coming up, pull it back. It's real smooth all the way, no issues there at all. Now, one thing I kind of want to point out that due to the price point of this rifle, I'm sure is why you're going to see this, but like you have a little bit of play there when it's all the way in the rear. It doesn't affect anything, and once you get in close, there's no play at all as you'd expect, but I just kind of want to point that out. It's one of the things that when you're looking at a $3,000 to $4,000 rifle versus a $1,000-ish rifle, which this is, it's one of the things that sort of separates it, is that sort of play at the rear. Does it matter? Does it affect performance? Nope, not even a little bit, but just something to point out there, because I know people are going to say, well, why would I ever buy a more expensive rifle? Okay, just get this one. I don't know that you need to. This is a great rifle, but that is one thing that you'll notice different on some of the higher end rifles. Anyway, enough ranting, moving on back. We have a 3-position safety here. So all the way forward, it's the fire position that we were just using to test that trigger. If you move it back one, like that, you can still operate the bolt, but when you go to press the trigger, nothing will happen. If you put it on safe, locks the bolt up. So it's 3-position, allowing you to manipulate the bolt if you want to not be able to manipulate the trigger. Just gives you that option. I've never used it, but I know some folks out there certainly like it. The pistol grip they went with was the Hogue over-molded rubber grip. Works just fine, feels good in the hand. I actually think I have a review on this on an AR-15, but it's good grip. But if you want to change that to any other AR-15 grip out there, you can. It's just swappable like any other one. Just take the screw out underneath, put your new grip on, and you're in business. So moving on back, we do have a stock system that is based off the AR-15 buffer tube system. So we have our castle nut here, of course, our traditional AR-15 buffer tube there, and we do have buffer tube assembly, rather I should say. It's a 6-position adjustable tube, so you have a good bit of adjustment there. And one thing that I like about the stock, when I first saw the stock, let me back up, I was kind of like, why did they put that stock on this rifle? It just sort of looks a little bit out of place to me. That's me personally, it's my personal take on it, but functionally it's awesome, because even if you want to run high rings or something like that on your optic, if you're using an optic with a huge objective lens, it allows you to just unscrew these pieces on each side, and you can push the cheek up and get your cheek weld exactly where you need it, and it does that at a price point that is just awesome. So that's a very functional stock overall. Of course, if you wanted to swap it out with like a Magpul PRS, you could, and you'd be fine doing that. And it also has a couple other features there. It has a nice rubber butt pad there to help soak up some of that recoil. And we have quick detach attachment points there for your sling, should you choose to run a sling with it. So again, I thought it kind of looked funny, but functionally it performs great. Now we're going to get into the optic a little bit. This is the Weaver Tactical 6x30 scope. It's got a 50mm objective and a 34mm tube, and it's made in Japan. So it has Japanese glass, Japanese internals. It's very nice overall. Honestly, I did a video on the Armalite AR-50 a while back where it had a Weaver scope on there, and it was an older model, and I kind of, I guess, poo-pooed it a little bit, especially on that particular rifle, but this one will not be getting any of that criticism. It's a very, very good scope. It has excellent clarity. The controls are very solid, very positive. The reticle is very usable. Really, there's not a whole lot to complain about here on this scope. However, it does come at a price, so let's just get that out of the way, right? The MSRP is $2,100. However, looking around, I found it for a good bit less. I found it over at Optics Planet. I think it was $1,299 or $1,300 or something like that. So in that price point, the actual street price point, that's a very good price for optic of this quality, in my opinion. It is the first focal plane scope, meaning that the reticle will stay the same regardless of the power setting you're on relative to your target. So that's certainly a good thing. You can do your milling or range estimation at any point along the way. It has a nice smooth throw to it, as you guys can see here. Again, 34 millimeter tube, and then both the windage and the elevation have 1/10 mil adjustments. And I should say that earlier we talked about the scope base and maybe wanting 20 MOA, but with this one you absolutely don't need it because you have 80 MOA of elevation adjustment, which is just huge, right? And then you have 40 MOA adjustment there for your windage. So a lot of play there, and really you'll be able to run this particular rifle out to the limit of the effective range of the caliber without issue with that 80 MOA. I should also point out there that it does have a 0 stop on there, so you can set your 0 and then dial in for elevation and then automatically just spin back down and you're good to go. You just have to remove the cap to set it, but all the instructions are in your manual. It's pretty simple stuff, but to actually move the turret is very positive. You get good clicks, both audible and tactile adjustments. You get good feedback both ways from it. It does have an illuminated reticle. The battery is here on the side. It runs off a CR2032 battery, and it can be illuminated in either green or red for those of you guys that like that. And the reticle itself, the whole thing does illuminate. It is a mill-based reticle. I believe they call it their improved mil dot, and just a few things going over the reticle here as you guys are looking at it. So from center to center of each of the dots on the mil dot, the open dots is 1 mil. The line that bisects them is 0.5 mils. And then the open part of the circle as you're looking through on the dots is 0.1 mil. So that way it gives you a way to not only mill your target in mils, half mils, but also in a 1/10 of a mil if you need that capability. So another thing I like about it is when you're actually getting your 0, your 100 meter 0, the center of the reticle is actually opened up. So where the crosshairs would typically meet, it's a circle. So it allows you to actually see through it and see your target, and it's not obscured by the crosshairs. So I certainly like that as well. Again, overall, very, very happy with this scope and no issues at all. I think we hit the high points on the rifle and the optic. One thing I want to zero in on is the price point of the rifle. I hinted at it earlier. The MSRP I think is like $1,200, but if you look around street price, you can find it for generally $1,000-ish. And I checked Brownells right before hitting the record button on this video, and it was $930. So we'll put a link down below for those of you guys looking to check that out. But the price point and the performance and the modularity of it really are sort of what makes it unique in the market, because there's a lot of other rifles like this. There really are, right? If you look around, it's a very competitive segment of the market, but most of those rifles either A, aren't going to be as well built, B, aren't going to have as good accuracy, C, are going to cost a lot more. So most rifles like this are generally going to be $2,000 and up, and they're also going to be a little bit heavier if you look around. So like I said, this one comes in at 9.1 pounds. So it's a little bit more totable. If you wanted to use a lighter weight optic on there, I think it would be perfectly fine for hunting. This particular optic, the Weaver, is a little bit on the heavy side. I think it's like 39 ounces. But if you wanted, you still could hunt with it. It's not like you can't, but my point is I would optimize it for hunting with a little bit lighter optic, and you'd be out there. You absolutely could drop all kinds of game across North America with 6.5 Creedmoor. And of course, you could also be very competitive in PRS, which I think is what a lot of people are going to look for with this rifle. Now, with that said, I know the obvious question that's coming, so I'm just going to cut it off right here and answer it. Do you prefer this or the Ruger Precision Rifle? So I have a review of that, the Ruger Precision Rifle, and now we have one of this. And you know, if I had to buy them again, I would buy this one. Reason is I got better accuracy out of this than I did with the Ruger Precision Rifle, and I really dislike the stock system on the Ruger Precision Rifle, like I mentioned in that video. It just wasn't my thing. This one's much more solid in my opinion, and of course the ability to add the like a mag pull or something like that if you wanted to is great. You can also do that on the Ruger, but for the price point that both of them are coming to market at, I think you just get more rifle with this particular model. One man's opinion. But the Ruger's not a bad rifle, I'm just pointing that out. But I guess that's going to inflame the comment section right now, isn't it? But by all means, if you have questions or comments, post that in the comments section. You can also post those questions over at my Facebook page as always. Hope you guys liked the review. Hope maybe you learned something. And if you didn't, or if you have suggestions how to improve it, you can also post that down in the comments section. But either way, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video.